I need to frame.
Please get into frame.
Please get in the frame.
It's okay if you disagree with me. You're right. Okay.
Oh, you have
That
a spelling
custom?
error on your shirt, right?
A what?
You have a spelling error on your shirt, you know?
Do I?
You do.
Well, it's not mine. This one's commercial.
Well, then you bought a bad one because...
It's okay if you disagree with me. What's the spelling? Can't force you? That's so cool. That's cool.
You literally have a shirt with a bug or a flaw.
I was actually just asking if you guys are paying attention.
Apparently we were. So
Monday morning.
Nothing gets by Matt.
that's right. So hey, I just realized we had started our podcast about a
Oh,
minute
you
ago.
guys are there.
Yeah, so people are here. So welcome to the Security Podcast, where everybody wears a black shirt, also known as the Security Table. So my name's Chris Romeo, joined by Izar Tarandosh, Matt Coles, and we're here to talk about cybersecurity at a crossroads. Sounds like such a important headline. We're at a crossroads, everyone. After almost 30 years in this profession, I finally reached a crossroads.
It's the other way around. I see us jumping from crossroad to crossroad. It feels like a traveling salesman problem or something. We
It's
keep
kind of
going.
like it's like Frogger.
Yeah. There you go.
Take that step forward, step back, step forward, step back. Side,
Sideways,
side,
sideways,
back.
And then you get hit by a truck.
Get hit by the truck. So cybersecurity is a metaphor. No.
No,
Frogger
Frogger is a metaphor for cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity. Wow. Well, there's a T-shirt. Put that on your
That's
list.
a t-shirt. That's a t-shirt.
Yeah. All right. Well, so this article is from CSO Online back in, I think we said May of 2024. And the article is entitled Cybersecurity at Crossroads, Time to Shift to an Architectural Approach. Okay, so
Now
what's
is
an
the time to
architectural
shift to an
approach?
architecture.
Yeah. Well, what is an architectural approach? Let's explore that idea first from our perspective. So, Matt, what's an architectural approach?
Well, I'll say the context I know is you build capabilities in by design at your architectural level, and that's what you rely on. And hopefully that's what they mean here. And I'm guessing that is, right? So the fundamental statement they make in this article is product-centric versus architectural-centric. And I think I just came to realize that means building capabilities into your architecture rather than relying on add-on products.
Mhm.
And so it's interesting, right? We've always touted build in, not bolt on. But why are we talking here in May 2024 now talking about build in versus bolt on?
I know.
Has it not?
Is it not
I
think Izar has a
filtered down?
comment.
I think Izar has a comment.
Because nobody's doing it. Yeah.
But I think I think they're taking
Have
a
you
different
people not been paying
perspective.
attention?
I think they're talking about something else. I think you're kind of reading the things we love into because look at the continuation of the sub headline. The need for greater scale intelligence and automation is driving massive change in security operations in the SIM market. So I'm reading this as more of they're talking about a architectural approach to the solution versus a point product challenge that we've had for a number of years about how you're going to have the architecture come together. Now, I guess we'll have to keep reading to see which path is the correct interpretation here.
Izar?
Yeah. So that's the thing, you know. So when we talk security, we talk security, usually product security, right? But there is this thing of the security of the whole environment where you're operating. You're, sorry for the lack of a better word, cybersecurity stuff. And I agree with Chris that this is what they seem to be going towards. But at the same time, seriously, to come now and say, oh, we need to look at the whole as an architectural thing. I mean, we've been talking about Lego pieces and Jenga pieces for what, 30 years? And to just come
Wow.
now and realize, oh, we have to structure this thing into layers and we have to instrumentalize each one of them. And we have to have, oh my God, if I hear that word again, that expression again, a single pane of glass that shows everything, right? Last I counted, I must have at least 4 single pane of glasses or something. But
Isn't that
and then,
that
of
we have
course,
a jar for that, don't we?
Yeah.
oh yeah, we
put that
do,
out.
right? But
Yeah, you
I'm
owe.
getting ahead
Pay
of
up.
I'm getting ahead here. Let's go
Let's-
layer by layer.
Let's unpack a few things that they said here, because there's a couple of things in this first section that it seems like it's part of the playbook of a successful cybersecurity article. You have to mention the attack surface and the evolving threat landscape, which is second paragraph. And then you also have to state that it's your firm belief that every one of these issues will grow substantially more complex over the next 2 to 3 years. You could say that since the beginning of time.
And you can talk,
in the next,
you can say that about anything.
yeah, in the next 2 to 3 years, cars are going to become more complex. Wow, visionary.
Technology does not reverse complexity. It's just we
Oh,
just
wait. That's good. That's good. Wow, that's almost Arthur C. Clarke level. Okay. No, seriously, that's good.
Matthew C.
wow.
Clark.
No,
over here.
I mean, think of it this. I mean, it is real, right? Technology becomes more complex because humans want to do more, and we want to be more productive. So we build more complexity into the technology. The technology never reverses complexity.
So I'm trying to think of an example. Has there ever been an example where something became less complex?
Oh, just because I'm going through it. Heat pumps versus air conditioning. Air conditioning? Yeah. Heat pumps are simpler. You do a hole in the ground, you stick a rod into it, heat does the physics things that heat does, and magic.
That's a good example, actually. Now, having said that, you have a lot more software to control that. The heat pump itself may be simpler, but the control systems are more complex.
Because
you need to build a balance.
Math for the win.
Yep. Nope. Totally true. Totally
Complexity
right.
wins.
Yep. I'll give that one to you. Yep.
And I think the obvious parallel or factor that we can draw from this is complexity has always been the enemy of security. And you could say complexity is the enemy of privacy as well, because the more complex something gets, the more challenging and less likely you are to be able to secure it and protect the privacy of the data contained within it. So complexity is actually an anti-pattern.
But that point there, actually, I think it's pretty interesting, because it's not that complexity hits privacy the same way that it hits security. I think that in the security bit, you're totally right. Like, there's that quote that I love going back to: the things should be as simple as they can, but no simpler than that. But for privacy, I think that the hit on privacy is only to the extent that we need a certain amount of security to protect privacy. But privacy itself as an idea, as a thing, I'm not quite sure the complexity hits it the same way. Because it's not like because something is more complex, you're going to be needing more data, or you might be, or getting more data, or distributing that data in different ways, or like that's part of the complexity.
That's the point. Actually, that's the point you just made. I think is important. And as I'm learning about privacy, and certainly we're not the experts here, we definitely want to tap into some other folks, friends of ours, to about that. But security can be a point solution, right? You can attach security to take a design and fix a security issue, right? Secure communications, right? TLS, good example, right? We can apply a point solution to a problem, make it more secure. When it comes to privacy, though, privacy is all about, first off, privacy is heavily subjective, and it is also related to data coming in and data coming out. And so if we look at it, just a sidetrack here, right? Obviously, because this is not related to the CSO article. When we look at a data flow diagram, we can look at a data flow diagram, and because we can look at it as by element or by interaction, we can solve security issues by element or interaction. But when you look at privacy, for the most part, you're looking at the collection of elements and the collection of interactions. And so you really need that. You really need the flow and not just the element or the interaction. And so it is much more, it's more complex it's more complex in its base characteristics, because it's all about where and how and why you collect data, and where and how and why you store that data and manipulate it, and making that connection.
You almost said complex by design.
I did say complex by design.
You backed out of it, but I caught it. I was like, hey, that's
that's about where I was going.
But actually that puts us into an interesting challenge, still going with the offshoot here, that when we are threat modeling and we are looking at a diagram, we usually know when to stop the level 0. We know what sort of granularity we need for the blocks that we're going to put in there. But I think with the little experience that I have had so far and looking to learn more, that if you are threat modeling for privacy, you need to even step back from the level 0, because now you have a whole context happening around those blocks and their connections that is not immediately apparent from the diagram. That there is a story on top of the system that is much more influential on the privacy thing than on the security thing.
So forget the CSO oracle. Let's just take this as a thread. This is perfect. So because now you're hitting an actual. This is a problem of mine, or pet peeve maybe. So first off, for those who are who may not be in the know, what Izar is describing as a level 0 is also referred to as a context diagram. But there's a sub-context, or there's a broader context that gets hidden when you do data flow diagrams. And first off, the first level of granularity that we lose in context diagram is we lose architecture. We lose a lot of the deployment characteristics, right? The network and the environment in that around that system. And so when we set a context, we say, oh, here's we have their software, and our software talks to a DHCP server, and our software talks to an LDAP server, and our software talks to the database. Never mind that it passes out of our building and often to the internet, or it goes off and it runs into this into the SEM or to this data collector or whatever. And we lose a lot of that information that is important for this purpose. And when it comes to privacy, because we're modeling the system, but we're not modeling the processes around the system, meaning the system lives within a broader context and it's interacting. Yes, it interacts with users on the outside, but those users are customers. And the customer data then comes into our system and goes out into that database and gets processed in a certain way, and then comes back to our system that we're modeling. We lose a lot of that context unless we actively make the point to call it out. And so when we traditionally do threat modeling, we're losing a lot of that data by design, right, in the process to reduce complexity of the process.
I want to come back around to this argument that Izar was making about there's a difference in complexity between security and privacy. And so if I start with the complexity from a security perspective, I'm measuring the complexity of the feature or the thing that I'm building. The security itself isn't complex. It's how complex the thing that I'm building is more difficult to secure because it's complex. And so I would say the same applies from a privacy perspective. The more complicated the feature that I have that's interacting with the data, the more challenging it is to be able to protect the privacy of that data. So the complexity is tied to the feature, not to the security. I mean, security can certainly be complex, don't get me wrong. And privacy engineering disciplines could be complex as well. But I'm really focused more on the middle, the thing that we're trying to secure, the thing that we're trying to keep private. The
So-
thing itself is where the complexity is dangerous.
I was talking with Kim the other day, and I asked her to explain to me, really, what are the challenges with privacy threat modeling, right, as a discipline. And we got into this back and forth where she would explain to me the privacy approach, the privacy issue, and I would try to play math and look how to apply formal methods to that and make the thing like almost math-like and a problem that you can actually attack with the tools that we already have or something approximate to that. And every time that I tried to do that, Kim would step back with, but wait, what about this and what about that? And just adding levels of complexity into the process itself, not into the thing called privacy. That kept being probably mischaracterizing it, but in my simple head, it kept being a simple problem. But then it had layers, and it had interactions, and it had offshoots, and it had the second order results that I just couldn't attack with the tools that I had. And that's where the complexity lies for me.
Izar is using Kim. Kim is Dr. Kim Woods, just in case anybody doesn't know who Kim is.
By now, you guys should know who she is.
You should know, but I want to make sure everybody does, because she's brilliant and is
here.
The one who teaches us about all these privacy things.
I think based on what you're just describing, and this sort of solidifies a concept or an idea I was just thinking to relate here. It's kind of like what's I'm losing the analogy here, but if you have levels of something, and if you start from here and you work your way down, and I'm talking about decomposition and reducing complexity and whatnot. If you start from here, you work your way down. At some point, you'll reach the floor.
Mm-hmm.
But with privacy, you start up here, and now as you work your way down, do you ever reach the floor? And so, if your level to begin with is already higher, if your high watermark is already twice or 3 times or 4 times as high as where you start from a security standpoint, then you may never reach the floor, or you have to do a lot more effort to reach the floor.
So why is that though? Why is that mark so high to start with, and how you're describing it?
I think it's because of that notion of by element versus by system. And so when you look at security, you can say I have element A talks to element B over a network connection, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas with privacy, I have to know I have system. Got to keep in frame. I have a system, and that system talks to a system, but that system could be very complex in and of itself, right? Think about the context. When we're modeling a system, we look at that system context. That thing is a box. When we model privacy, we need to look at the ecosystem that it sits in.
Yeah, maybe I'm doing it. Maybe I'm doing it wrong then, because I don't think of privacy. I don't think of data at the system level when I'm going through a threat model. I think about what data is passing through that element, and what data is being stored in that element, and what are the properties of protection for that particular data. So maybe I'm doing it wrong, but I tend to not think of. I don't think of privacy at the. I don't step back to the 50,000 foot view, looking out the window of the airplane, trying to figure out where all the data is. I'm down in the weeds, looking at the data. I can certainly combine it all at the end, but I want to be down at the element level, thinking about the individual pieces of data.
I think the problem with that is, you lose a lot of context when you do that, right? And I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I'm just saying that I think we may do ourselves a disservice by doing it at that level, because when you look at a piece of data that comes into your front end, well, you can, if you know that that's data that is privacy related data, right? So whether it's PII or PHI or whatever it is, right? Some sort of data that needs to be protected from a privacy standpoint. But you look at it as data coming into your front end, to your web application, and you're going to do something with it. You can secure it there, and you can protect its privacy there. But what you don't know is, was it collected? Was it delivered by the user with the expectation that it would be privately protected?
Well, I think
right? You don't know what it's.
You should be making that assumption.
You don't know
about
what its
everything
collection parameters were.
at this
You don't
point.
know how it made it to you, right? There's stuff that happens outside of that scope, which makes this privacy challenge
I want to
complex, right?
ask you a question though in response to that, because when I'm talking about privacy, thinking about data at the element level, the scenario you just described, how do you even know what data is in the system then? I know what data is in because I'm dealing with it at the I'm figuring it out at the element level and then rolling it up. In your scenario, how do you even know what data is being processed without looking deeper?
And that's exactly the complexity that I was talking about, right? You just pointed exactly at it. You are looking at a life cycle of the data inside the system, how it moves, where it gets stored, how it gets transformed. The thing is that when I was looking into it with Kim, all of a sudden the data had a different life cycle. As what's my expectation towards that data? For how long is it going to live? Where it came from? Where is it going to? Does it have the same privacy value? And that's something that I'm just inventing here. That I think. Does it have the same privacy value in this system as it has in that system? Right? So an example that we keep going back to, the famous somebody raised all my Apple devices hack of a couple of years ago. Somebody called to Amazon, said I am such and such, and they said we can only give you the last 4 numbers of your credit card, and they got it. And then they called Apple, and Apple asked, okay, to prove that you are who you are, what are the last 4 digits of your credit card, right? So that value just that it's the same data. It has different values in both sides of the equation, and there's no rule, there's no threat model that we can put in place that's going to absolutely cover that case.
You know, one other thing I want to highlight here, actually, this has been pretty thought-provoking, just sitting here talking to you both about this. I think the other piece I think that is important to highlight is we always go down in decomposition. So we always start in a context and work our way down and decompose. When I'm talking about having that
There's just
having that
bodily decomposition metaphor there that you were like
I
decompose.
I was just thinking of Monty Python and the decomposing composers. Okay, go.
So we tend to go down, right? We start with the context and we work our way down. When I was talking about the ecosystem, and we need to understand that ecosystem view, that doesn't mean we need to start with the ecosystem. We could start with a level 0 and go level -1.
Yeah, so that's what I said, the step back. Yeah.
Right. Well, right, exactly. So rather than thinking about, because you asked Chris, well, how do we know what data is if we look at the ecosystem, how do we know what data is there? Well, we don't. We have partial knowledge. We have partial information about the ecosystem, and that's okay until we start doing the level 1, level 0, level 1, level 2. And then we put that back into context with the ecosystem. The ecosystem is our new level, right? And so really we're starting with level 1, probably. And then we work our way down, and then we work our way back up. And eventually we have this full stack.
I think you may have just invented something.
But wait, we're in the room. What do you even do when the privacy value of a piece of data changes over time?
The same thing we do with security over time. I mean, it becomes a state machine that we don't do state machines, but we should.
Threat modeling is a continuous journey, as I learned in a document called the Threat Modeling Manifesto.
And we have to.
I remember that one.
We haven't introduced zero trust yet. We haven't brought up the zero trust word yet.
Come on.
I don't trust you guys enough to talk about zero trust.
Your system state changes over time, and so when you threat model and use a data flow diagram, you're giving a static window into that state. But if we use state machines,
no, wait. I get it that like over time, okay, security changes and threats change and all that good stuff. Actually, I just had a conversation with Adam last week about that. That was really interesting. But privacy. If the privacy value changes over time, and I have data that was in my system that was not considered private for some reason before, that cat is not going back into the barn just because now I'm threat modeling in a different way with different values. That data is already there and used by the system, and perhaps even unprotected because yesterday it didn't have privacy value.
Yeah, but I mean, you're asking for time travel as a security control or
Always.
privacy control.
Always.
That's
Always.
is not we can't travel. We can't get in a DeLorean, run it up to 88 miles an hour, and run backwards and re-architect our privacy requirements because they changed 20 years in the future, right? What, like you said, once it's out of the barn, it's out of the barn. But that was a decision made at the beginning of the system. There's no
With the information that you had at the time.
And
Right.
your
yeah.
your only option is to rework. I mean, that's what rework is for, right? Or refactoring, right? And so
Well, Izar's point is you can't once it's out though, you can't put data that's been released back in the barn and say it's private now.
yeah, that's true. I mean, you have to do
That
some
was
sort
silly
of
of me.
corrective. You have to do some corrective action. You do have to have some sort of. I mean, we as system designers and security engineers and privacy people, right? The regulations decide that we're going to have to do refactoring and rework and some remedial action there, and that's fine. That's at the ecosystem level. One other thing, I think, on your point of privacy, data becoming private. If the privacy value changes, and thinking about data as classifying data as private or non-private, or requiring privacy protection, I want to sort of a mind-blown discussion. There is not only the data wasn't private because the privacy regulations didn't exist at the time you built the system, but because privacy can be subjective, a user can make claim to their data or not over time. And so data that you did collect under privacy rules may then be released, or data that you don't collect under privacy rules may become opted in at some point to privacy. So it isn't just that the system, the regulation or the requirements change because of outside factors, but inside factors as well.
I'm going to act like I understood that, and I'm going to nod very slowly. Wait, I'm thinking in a loud voice. Okay.
No, I'm tracking. It makes sense.
Well,
No, it makes
because
sense, but I'm not
because privacy has an opt-in or opt-out, right?
And that
we
can
generally
change in the future.
right here
as well.
here in the US, we generally do opt-out of things, whereas
Yes.
in much of Europe it's an opt-in decision. But the state of data may change within the system context, or it may change because GDPR2 comes along, and now everything has to change, right? Or depending on where you sell things, right? If you sell product or if you're storing data for Chinese users or California users, but not Mexico users or New Mexico users, right? Where state privacy changes.
So I think the
Just
takeaway
regionally.
here is you should have protected all the data that your system ever has, could have, or will have in the future. Might have, should have been completely locked down from 1970 forward. Protected by formal methods, which I didn't even get a chance to address that one, but formal methods, in my mind, breed more complexity than they're worth.
They shouldn't, but yes, we
They
tend
shouldn't.
They shouldn't, but
Yes.
we tend to do badly.
No,
I mean,
that's because we like to
Misra.
fancy write these things.
Look at Misra, right? If you look at Misra as a coding standard, it is not a coding standard in terms of certain language constructs, but it has an important statement about the complexity of algorithms, complexity of functions. The number of statements in a function needs to be reduced so that it's not complex on a per function basis. You can do formal methods and manual code review.
That's something that I
And-
never understood. How do you measure complexity by number of lines of code?
It's like climatic complexity, I think, is the measure.
Yeah, but I've seen people write like long functions just to
this
avoid the
probably matters-
complexity.
This probably matters more in C than it does in other languages, right? Where in C you have so many different ways that you can do pointer manipulation in C, and therefore you have lots of what can you do in a for loop, and how much can you do in the for loop rather than building functions that or writing other lines of code, right? You can do stuff in a for loop in C that you can't do anywhere else. And so
thank God
remember,
for that.
with complexity comes job security.
Good point. Very good point.
So here's a question. How come How come we never had an opt-in or opt-out feature for security, but we do for privacy?
Oh, we do have an opt-out version.
Do we?
Yeah, accept the risk.
Where do I get that slider? Where do I get that slider on?
It's not a slider. It's something that I keep being shouted at. Yeah. It's going to be okay. We accept the risk. Yeah.
Matt. That's a very compelling question. Why do we not have an opt-out, opt-in? We have opt-out, opt-in. We don't really have opt-in. Opt-in, like you said, is a European construct. Opt-out, from a privacy perspective, is more of the U.S. world, U.S. or market or whatever. But yeah, why don't we give people the ability? I mean, now you're starting to talk about loosening. They're coming all the way back around full circle. Like Matt's asking for loosening to be
I'm
part
not
of
asking for
any
loosening.
solution.
Hold on. I'm not asking for loosening. I'm just asking, why did we never think about it?
No. Wait. So opting in into security is actually building our security program. Opting out is accepting the risk. What's the big deal?
As a user, can you say, don't use TLS?
Oh, as a user.
Yeah,
As
this
a
was user perspective.
Wait. Let's think about this one. Can I opt out as a user?
I don't want data. If somebody
Yeah, it's
decides
Shadow
they
IT.
want more, what?
We're getting every buzzword here.
I
what
opt
other?
out of security by using Shadow IT.
I can't believe we haven't had Gen AI come up yet, just to try to complete
just
the
did.
entire
You just brought it
circle
up. There you
of.
go.
And what about-
Where do you think that all these ideas are coming from? Wait.
It's probably Gen AI backed by quantum crypto algorithms, would be my guess. Just because I want to get another bingo. For those playing the bingo, the security table bingo.
Oh, no. Let's block that chain right here.
We're just gonna go there.
Oh man, we're in the midst
We
of a
might need
digital
machine learning for
transformation.
this.
Ooh, yeah.
The only machine learning that I do is reading user manuals.
All right, so
Worship the wall.
what have we learned here? What's been the point of this 32 minutes of conversation?
We use CSO Online for idea generation, but we ignore the article.
That's a good takeaway. Not a bad
Yeah.
takeaway. It's, thank you, CSO Online, for inspiring us to talk about something different.
We learned that privacy is hard, okay?
That's a good shirt, too. Privacy is hard, okay?
Wait, that goes into the jar. Where's the...
I'm just scanning the article now to see. There's really not anything else.
We're just completely. We had a better topic.
Yeah.
Wait. Let's look at the last paragraph and see. Finally, I see new category of companies I call SIEM, or more accurately, security operations supplementals. This includes detection engineering tools and services, threat intelligence aggregation firms, advanced analytics systems, and the like. Wait.
You went there. Why did you go there?
This says, we've gone so far off the article that.
No, wait. Why do we need a new category? Oh, it's CSO Online, right. If it doesn't have a quadrant to put it in, if it doesn't have a category, it doesn't exist. Yeah, no, okay. Yeah, I got it. Yeah. Totally agree. Yeah, we need a new category and at least 4 or 5 new quadrants and whatnot. Yeah, sure.
Categories make the world go round. We should.
Totally.
We should have it in the Inner Harbor in Baltimore. Oh,
Saw you.
Yeah, I think we've done enough damage to the world.
I think
And it's only Monday morning.
Hopefully this. I think we had some thought-provoking things. My brain was moving here. You guys challenged me in some of my thinking about intersection of privacy and security and complexity and all these things. So this is all good stuff to explore.
We need Dr. Woods to come on and tell us how completely wrong we are.
Yeah.
You know what? We quoted her a lot. I think it's about time we invite her in.
Yeah, she can just do a lecture to to teach us to correct all the things that we've said that were incorrect. Because I know she's a listener. So
Can I opt out?
no, you may opt in. It's your only option.
Well, we can mute you. Is that an opt-out?
That's an opt in. It depends on whether it's whose perspective.
I'll
It's
be
our
writing on the.
perspective.
I'll be writing on the block.
Help. I'm trapped. All right. Well, folks, thanks for listening to this episode of the Security Table. Get out there and decomplexify your security and privacy.
But don't decompose.